Hello and welcome to another edition of Communication Steroids, the podcast. I'm Roger Pike.
I'm Tim Gonzo Gordon. Thanks for joining us.
It's always fun to be here.
We're taking a little different approach tonight. What we've done actually is every other podcast we've ever done, all the programs we've done, we've been sitting down. I said, let's stand up tonight. It reminds me of the old stand-up studios we used to have in radio back in the day.
Well, you know, in terms of shaking things up, just standing up may not seem like a lot, but by golly, when you haven't done it for a while.
It's different for us.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and I want to actually explain this. I was thinking of this earlier today, Roger, and I don't think we've mentioned this. We actually record on Tuesday nights. Mm-hmm. It gets produced during the week, and if at all possible, and it usually works out, I can do a YouTube version, sort of a slideshow version, right, and then post that on YouTube, and it all gets posted Monday night, Tuesday morning, so that the newsletter goes out Tuesday morning. So basically, it's a week in advance.
Right.
So that we have one in the can in case something goes wrong. In case, we get a snowstorm or a flat tire or whatever the case may be. So
what are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about...
I should talk into the microphone instead of across it because it sounds like I'm in the bottom of a canyon when I do this.
Well, you're wearing the headphones today so you can understand you sound like.
Oh, well, I sound
we're
great.
going to talk about pushing the comfort zone.
Pushing the old envelope, huh?
Yeah. Well, I think when we get out of our comfort zone, it's an old story, but it's a good story, and it's a good thing to talk about because when you get out of your comfort zone, I really think that's where you grow the most when you talk about self-growth.
I'm standing up when doing the podcast. Am I growing? Am I getting taller? I used to tell my wife I was just a few inches from an NBA contract. I didn't tell her it was up.
Yeah, 12 inches up, and I'd be making $8 million a year. I think pushing the comfort zone is a great thing. Now, I know you've got a story you want to tell, but I want to tell the one that goes back to when I was in radio. I was asked many times in radio, and I was a disc jockey, and I liked being on the radio, I liked sitting in front of the microphone and playing records. That was a fun thing. Mm-hmm. But on occasion, they would say, I need you to go out and do this live appearance, a live telephone appearance or live whatever. And then one time I got asked to MC what they called the Ugly Contest here in town.
Sounds like fun.
It was like about an hour and a half, 2-hour contest around Halloween. People would come in and dress up as ugly as they could. We had a contest, and I'd MC this thing. Yeah. And, I was anxiety-ridden for about 3 weeks before this thing happened. I finally got through it and got past it and realized that I need to learn how to do this. I need to learn how to get up in front of people in public and speak. And it was expanding my comfort zone. I was not in my comfort zone at all. But eventually I got to the point where I could because I joined a Toastmasters group and learned to speak in public.
Well, it's interesting that you should say that because, people think about folks on the microphone. I mean, you and I were both in radio. I mean, I was at KWJ in Portland for a long time, and, we were fifth in the market. And I talked to thousands of people every morning. And folks would naturally expect that, because you're talking in a microphone to thousands of people, that you're comfortable talking to folks in person, but you're not. It's different.
It's really different because you're in a room, a closed room with a microphone. You're the only guy there usually. Maybe you've got one or two other people there, but you're not in front of 1,000 people.
No, you are not.
You are talking one-on-one to one person.
And I remember the first time that I was pushed out in front of a large group. I'd given speeches all my life and thought that I was incredibly comfortable doing anything. Never had a butterfly in my life giving a public speech until I was asked to, at the state fair, introduce the Oak Ridge Boys in front of thousands of screaming maniacal fans wanting to know when the hell I was going to get off the stage and the Oak Ridge Boys were going to come on.
Did you come out and say, "You feeling all right?"
Actually, I came out on stage and looked at the audience and said, I've heard more noise than this at a tennis match. And of course,
good. Start a greater relationship with the audience by insulting them.
Exactly. That's exactly what I did. And of course, the place went gunny bags, and and then I went on with my spiel. But I felt better after that. I felt better when I mentally undressed them by insulting them. But yeah, to get back to our topic, the fact of the matter is that I used to lift weights. I used to lift weights all the time. I used to lift weights 6 days a week, 3 days upper body, 3 days lower body, and I was very serious about it. And they tell you that the only weight that matters is the weight that you lift when you're tired, when you don't think you can get another rep out of yourself, when you don't think you can do it at all. Every single ounce you lift up until the point you're tired has one goal in mind: get you tired.
Okay.
Because the only one that counts is the one where you're exhausted. And I used to have a buddy that would lift weights with me, and I'd would be bench pressing, lying on my back, pushing weight straight up into the air. And I'd have enough weight on the bar that maybe I could only get 8 reps out of it. And so I'd push it up 7 times, and it'd be really hard. I'd struggle through the 8th rep, and he'd be standing there looking down at me saying, you got one more in you. Well, I didn't think I did. But he's standing there, so by God, he's standing there. I'm going to do it because he's standing there. So I pushed that up a 9th time, and he said, you got one more in you. Well, I knew I didn't, but, he's there, and he's telling me that I've got another rep in me, so I'd lower the bar, and I'd work, and I'd strain, and I'd struggle, and veins would burst in my forehead, and, the whole 9 yards. And I'd finally get it up again. And then he'd say, you know what, Roger? There's one more in you. And I knew absolutely, for complete and total true, that he was wrong. He was as wrong as a human being could be in this lifetime. But finally, I'd push that last one up, and I'd start to push, and I'd begin to struggle, and I'd come back, and he'd put one finger under the bar. Mm-hmm. One finger, and he'd say, I'm going to help you. He'd put one finger under the bar, and with that one finger, I would get that up for the 11th time, and that's the rep that mattered. That's the rep that built muscle.
That's great.
And that's exactly what happens when you get outside your comfort zone. When you push your limit, you grow. You get bigger.
There was a movie, documentary, Pumping Iron, on Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think the first movie he ever made.
Never looked like him.
Lou Ferrigno was in the movie quite a bit. Of course, he played the Incredible Hulk on TV, but this is way back when Arnold was winning the Mr. Universes, and his attitude towards lifting weight and pumping iron and being the best in the world was very similar to what you were saying. He said, I'm going to go as far as I can, then I'm going to go further, I'm going to go further, I'm going to go further than everybody else. And it reminds me of the old Steve Prefontaine attitude, the great runner from Oregon, mm-hmm. who said, I don't really run to win, I run to see what the other guys got in them.
Well, let's take it one step further. Let's talk about pushing yourself in terms of communications. How can you do that? What do you do to push your limits?
Well, I think one of the things you have to do is when you get up on stage, don't have everything totally prepared. Don't be totally memorized. Understand that you may come to a point where you draw a blank and mm-hmm. pause, like we talked last week about mm-hmm. the pause. Mm-hmm. In other words, try things you haven't tried before and maybe be a little more dramatic. Throw some more action into your speech. Act a little bit. I mean, do things that you aren't used to doing, and you'll come off the stage going, wow, that worked, or that didn't work, but
tell a dramatic
learned.
Story, and get animated with it, get passionate with it. Yeah, try that. Another thing to do is to get out in front of a bigger group. If you're a member of a Kiwanis club or a Rotary club, give a speech before the entire club. If you've never done anything like that before, just do it.
There are times when you're going to come to choices in your life. One is the easier road, one's the harder road. And so often in my life, I've taken the easy road, but probably in my 30s or so, I realized that, that's not where the growth comes from. The personal growth comes from taking the harder road by challenging yourself. And I would challenge you that when you come to those choices, and you can go to the left, which is the easy road, or to the right, which is the harder road, but that's the growth road, take the harder road.
Write a story. That'll help you grow.
There you go.
There you go.
Thanks, Roger.
It's always a pleasure being here, Tim. And you know what? I hosted this one, so it's my turn to say thank you, Tim.
And good night.